Well, we continue our Finance Bill Tuesday conversations, and this time we brought in a legislator who will be looking at the finance bill, and she will be expected to vote on the finance bill. GATHONI WAMUCHOMBA, Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning,
good
Eric,
to have you here.
And my professor of proverbs.
Mheshimiwa, these kofias of yours, I like them.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Thank you.
How many do you have?
Many colors.
Mm. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. It's
Signature.
a way of just making it easy for me.
Signature.
Not really signature, but I don't have to really do a lot of work on my hair. Yeah.
Nice one.
I may not have that much time. Yeah. You do?
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
they're
Thank
lovely.
you.
They're very
Thank you.
nice.
So how are you doing?
Very well.
Been following you guys.
Karibu sana.
Very good and healthy conversations. Yeah.
Siti, give the Mheshimiwa the day's proverb. This week the proverbs are from
The Republic
of Bensouda.
Actually, yes, Bensouda did come from Gambia. Yes, she did. She did.
She's not dead.
She still comes from Gambia.
She still
She
comes
still-
from Gambia even till today.
When she was in the ICC,
She
she
was
came
from Gambia even today.
And maybe she went back to Gambia
after ICC.
Yeah.
Are you people through with all this?
We are done.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
thank
done.
you very much.
All right.
Read the proverb.
All right.
People get fed up even with honey.
People get fed up even with honey.
Yep.
Yes, they do.
In my community, we say Kamau Mweronia Iraga.
Kamau.
Kamau, who was brown, sometimes ends up becoming very black. And Kikuyus didn't like anybody who was very black.
Light-skinned Kamau can get
Because I'm a
dark-skinned.
Kikuyu, so I come from a Kikuyu community. So when you want to warn somebody about getting excited over new ideas, over new persons, without, first of all, doing due diligence on them, we use the same proverb, and we say, Kamau mwero neiraga. So don't get excited over this nice person who is packaging himself as a nice person, because eventually he may turn out to be the very black person.
Break your
Atatoa
heart.
tint. Tint itaisha. That's a nice one.
Rangi tanyeshewa.
Atanyeshewa. That's a nice one.
It's a Gambian, you said?
Yes. All the proverbs this week are from the Republic of Gambia.
This Kamau of yours, GATHONI, that we elected in 2022, Ananyeshewa.
That's you who said.
This your Kamau.
Who?
So the finance bill 2024, right?
Is one of those things that are making my Kamau change color. Yeah, it's a punitive, oppressive piece of document
What?
that is going to make Kenyans' lives even harder. It's going to stifle out people's livelihoods in this country. And I'm worried that if it do happen as proposed, we are going to have very serious impact on livelihoods, and especially touching on the productive society of Kenya. The productive, I mean the people who are earning. Yeah, because there are double taxations proposed, and some of them are retrogressive taxes.
Let's start with the main ones. You represent Githunguri constituency. It's very, very active, vibrant agriculturally.
Yeah.
Very many things.
Yeah.
They're big poultry farmers. They rear pigs. They are in dairy. Let's start with poultry because you mentioned.
I mentioned poultry. We are not very big in poultry in Githunguri, but we are very big in Kikuyu, Kabeta area. In fact, we have the biggest poultry market in Wangige,
Yes.
where we sell a lot of eggs, and in Thika. And according to this proposal, Eric, we have proposed that we are going to allow eggs from the East African community to come in to Kenya without any duty. So we have removed all the duties that were there, especially the excise duty. What does that mean? It means that anybody now who is farming poultry or producing eggs in Tanzania and Uganda can now freely bring their egg here. And allowing that to happen noting that the cost of production in Tanzania and Uganda is so much lower compared to cost of production in Kenya. That will allow more cheap eggs to come from our neighboring countries. And because our farmers cannot keep up or match up, what they will do, they will just give in. And this might kill the poultry industry in this country because there are no better equating incentives given to the same farmers in Kenya. I expected if you are to do that, what we have proposed, to remove excess duty and allow eggs to come into Kenya, we then have to subsidize a lot of inputs for our local poultry farmers, but that has not been done. So I see a situation where there will be a lot of proliferation of eggs from East African community to Kenya, and that would definitely kill the poultry sector.
Please explain this again. Currently, there is excise duty imposed on poultry products.
Yep.
From the East African community.
No. Not from all the East African community members. But now when we do a blanket entry allowance for them, then that will flood the eggs into this country. Now, Eric, let me tell you what will happen.
Is that not part of the East African Common Market Protocol?
It is a part of the protocol, but if we allow it to widely get opened without any restriction, any taxes on top, it means then I can actually now go to Tanzania and do my poultry in Tanzania or Uganda and still bring eggs here in Kenya. And that is exactly what is happening right now. The big players of poultry are now relocating, including some of the people we know that are in the executive and the presidency. They've moved their poultry farms from Kenya to Tanzania and to Uganda. So this is actually preferential. This excise duty removal is preferential to favor some serious investors who know what's going on. Eric, what is also going to happen is that there are countries that are outside the East African Community Treaty and are enjoying other block treaties like the COMESA and ECOWAS. And they have also allowed what we call STIP. STIP means a United States Stimulus Importation Program, where those countries allow finished poultry products into their country. So there are countries within East Africa who will access the products that are coming from Europe and from America and other countries to their countries. And because they are also enjoying the East African community exemption, they will now be able to bring those products into Nairobi.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that means this is a new pathway we have created to receiving even products that are coming from Europe, poultry products, but through shortcuts. There was an attempt about, I think, in January or February, I don't know whether you read about it, where there was a meeting that was done, and it was supposed to discuss the STIP documents. STIP is an agreement that looks at allowing America to dump, let me use that word, to dump their finished poultry products into Kenya. US-Kenya STIP. I want to explain what this document was talking about. The Ministry of Trade held a meeting between the Kenya Poultry Breeders Association of Kenya to ask their views on what they feel if they allowed US to bring in final poultry products, finished. When I say finished, I mean when you slaughter a chicken, there is that piece of the head that is not consumed in US, and there is those migus, those what are they called?
What is
Called
this
feet.
Migus.
Migus, those legs, the claws.
Yes.
They are not consumed heavily in US. So if we allow this kind of an agreement, the Kenya-US TIP negotiation program, we will allow America to dump their legs and their heads into Kenya. And they come at a very, very subsidized platform. They will definitely kill the local street poultry product market.
Okay.
Now, let me take you to
That
Gambia.
was a conversation
Let me take you to
about,
Gambia, where City took us with the proverb. Or rather, let me take you to Senegal. Let me take you to Cameroon. allow me to take you to such countries that have already allowed this kind of business to happen. The poultry industry in those countries has collapsed. Some of them has collapsed up to about 20%, others to about 70%, based on where STIP found them. So this discussion, I'm not so sure whether the presidential delegation that went to USA last week, whether they finalized on this agreement. Because if they did, then we brace ourselves to a diminishing poultry sector in this country.
In terms of accessing the East African market, right?
Yeah.
Right now, Kenyan eggs can go to Tanzania
Yeah.
tax-free.
Yes.
So what's wrong with Tanzanian eggs coming to Kenya tax-free?
The only problem is that their production cost in Tanzania is slightly lower than the production cost in Kenya.
So why can't we lower our costs?
So an egg produced in Tanzania will cost less. And therefore, if it is matched with a Kenyan egg, that egg in Tanzania will be more competitive.
Why can't we lower our costs?
That is a question. That is a question. Before we propose the removal of those duties to allow eggs to stream in from Tanzania and Uganda, we should have first of all asked ourselves, what is this platform that we need to give to our local farmer so that they can competitively trade or compete with those eggs that are coming from other countries? Right now, Eric, I am a farmer, I can tell you. Buying a 90-kilogram bag of dairy meal for a cow or any product that is going to for poultry in this country is actually very punitive. And most farmers are running away from even processed dairy meals, and now they are going back to their backyard, what we call cottage growing. And how many of us can afford to do cottage growing? I mean, if I have, for example, 50 cows, can I sustain to feed these cows from my cottage, from my backyard? I cannot. And when it comes to the volumes of productivity, then the yields are also affected. So I am flagging this issue as a farmer, that we may need to go back to the drawing board before we pass this finance bill. We may need to consider engaging farmers. And I'm happy that the Poultry Producers and Breeders Association of Kenya did their memorandum to the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. And I'm hoping that the Finance Committee is going to look at that proposal, analyze the memorandum, and probably maybe even engage further with the technical experts before making decisions on that issue of poultry. Otherwise, we are going to be retrogressive.
But Mweshima, this is the thing, though, that we speak of. When you speak about it from the experience of a farmer, that then contributes to public participation. And as we know, according to the law, there's nothing in word that should be done without the element of public participation. It is the farmers who participate in this conversation. When we talk about going back to the drawing board, the people who hold the paintbrushes, it's the farmers, it's the suppliers, it's the folks who are on the ground who actually understand what this thing means. But is it really taken into consideration? And who has these conversations about these things?
Before I respond to your concern, let me clarify what STIP means. STIP means Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership. That is US-Kenya Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership. This is a proposal under the Ministry of Trade, Department of Trade, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. And that's a very sensitive document.
It's the ongoing trade talks between Kenya and the US.
Yes,
that have been going on for years.
Yes.
And we were told by the US ambassador it's likely to be concluded later this year.
And if it is concluded, then you can be sure.
Some of these proposals, if they're not amended, then they'll have an
There are
impact.
so many boys and girls who rely on abattoirs. What do you call them?
Abattoirs. Yeah.
Abattoirs. For layman's language, slaughterhouses for chicken. And if you go to everywhere where there is a slaughterhouse for chicken in this country, there are those young boys who always wait for the heads,
feet.
for the chicken feet and the heads.
And the matumbo.
And the matumbos. And let me tell you, that's a whole economy.
It is.
It is a whole economy. So if we allow US to actually bring those matumbos, chicken matumbos and chicken feet in this country, and they are going to bring them at to them it's waste. So they're actually going to dump that as waste here. So they can sell as cheap as 1 shilling per feet. 1 shilling per kilo of matumbo, because they are actually it's dumping. So what will happen to those boys of Korogosho? Like in Naivasha, there's a place called the Fire Mario's place. Opposite Fire Mario's place, there's a big abattoir where they do a lot of slaughter of chicken, and there's a lot of business that happens there. So what happens to those boys and girls, noting that we still have a lot of problems with employment? That's done. Let me respond to what my sister has asked about public participation. This constitution that I always carry, and remember I'm the chair of the committee that oversees Parliament on matters constitution implementation, clearly outlines the sovereignty of Kenyan people. Article 1 of this constitution dictates that the sovereignty of Kenyan people must be given the right space and must be allowed to thrive. The spirit of this constitution then directs that we must allow Kenyans to give their ultimate opinion on lawmaking process. And that is why we must have public participation. But I don't know why in this country we have taken the public participation process like a political process. And I don't even know why politicians are allowed to oversee public participation, because politicians would definitely be biased. They will skew the process towards their wanted or expected outcomes. So last year, I did public participation, not because I was supposed to do, because that at the stage I did public participation in my constituency is not actually part of the process. But I voluntarily went to my constituency and did my own public participation just to weigh people's opinion and get to know their expectation as my voters. And they told me very clearly and very loudly that they were not comfortable with Finance Bill 2023 proposal. Out of that finance proposal, public participation I did, I received a lot of, can I say setback? Yes, I received a lot of political thrashing, political intimidations and all that. But I expected, because that was the mood of the country, I expected that those that went for the formal public participation sittings before the committee that is relevant, that is the finance committee, I expected that their views would have been amalgamated into the final finance bill, which translated to Finance Act 2023. But unfortunately, it wasn't. And that has been the trend. And I'm calling out the executive. I'm calling out Parliament, because Parliament must get serious and align themselves with this constitution.
So this thing is a waste of time. Is that what you're saying?
From last
Public
year's activity,
all this thing that's happening.
From
when
last
there are
year's
calls
activity,
for public participation, were in the newspaper. When emails are sent out, when people are told in your wards, in your whatever, come out for public participation, the CIDPs for county, for example. When we talk about the finance bill, when they say come and tell us what you think, it really is an exercise in futility.
Well, I don't want to say generally across the board that this is an exercise in futility, but I want to flag out the Finance Bill 2023 activity. That whole activity was in futility, because whatever people said, over 90% Kenyans said they don't want affordable housing. And I'm sure it is in record. But did we listen to them? No. 90% said they are worried about the added levies on fuel. That was last year's proposal. Did we abide with what people presented? So I am not going to generalize and say public participation is an exercise in futility, but specifically what happened last year on finance bill proposal was not right. And if that happens this year, then I think people must go to court. People must go to court. And we must align ourselves with this constitution. I'm very disappointed, Eric. You know, when I sit here as a member of parliament and I cannot be able to assure my voters that their opinions can be respected, and I swore to guide them and lead them using this constitution, which we are not aligning ourselves with, then I feel it's not worth to be a member of parliament. Because why should you lead people by force? Why should you, press your own opinion and your own way of doing things to down people's throats, and yet we are in a democratic country governed by the rule of law. So I guess this is the time to speak out.
Okay.
And some of us, when we speak out, we are not applauded. We are not embraced, but we are speaking what is actually happening. Look at, for example, what is happening with our issue that I keep talking about, our land. I came here last year, you remember, and I said, you cannot come and force yourself to build houses for us and take away our land without even asking us whether we are comfortable to give you our land. All those houses, affordable houses project you're seeing, I want you to produce for me a project in Kiambu County where members of Kiambu County were invited for a public participation meeting and asked to donate land to government or to give back land to government of Kenya to continue constructing affordable houses. But we are only hearing there is a affordable housing project coming up in Sijui Thika, coming up Sijui in Roiro, and nobody is asking us, what is it that you need? In my own constituency, I overheard that there were plans for people to come and take over land that belongs to the Mau Mau veterans. Land that was gazetted in the year 2011 by the late Olen Timama, specifically to come up with the Mau Mau veterans structures like the galleries, the kereres, the Mau Mau education facility, and it's there in the Kenyan Gazette. Then somebody somewhere is seated in a boardroom crafting on how they are going to come up with affordable houses on that land without engaging the Mau Mau themselves, without engaging us, because we are the owners of the land. I mean, that is what I'm calling out. We must align ourselves with this constitution. If we want a government, a functional government, we must follow the constitution of Kenya.
The Honorable GATHONI WAMUCHOMBA is a member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency. She is the chair of the National Assembly Committee for the Implementation of the Constitution. We are talking about public participation, the threshold for engaging with Parliament and the threshold for Parliament oversighting the executive. As we look at public participation and engagement of the public on this finance bill and the likely outcome out of it, we have to come back and ask ourselves, we don't have a law that governs public participation in this country. You chair the Constitution Committee, that is the committee that's in charge of oversighting implementation of the Constitution. This is right at your doorstep, Mheshimiwa. Why don't we have a law on public participation?
According to the standing order of the National Assembly, my committee oversights. Oversighting means our work is to identify and communicate on what we have identified as a miss. There is a committee that is supposed to take up that, the Committee of Justice, Legal Affairs, and craft laws that are going to align with what we flag out. So my committee does not craft. My committee flags out.
Okay.
And my work is to flag out. And we've already flagged out. Actually, even in the previous parliament, it was flagged out. And it's the honors of the relevant committee to execute.
We have seen previously the Committee on Justice and the Committee on CIOC working together to craft bills. Even in the last parliament, those two committees crafted the bills on, amending the Political Parties Act so that we can have this coalition political party thingy-majiggy. We saw them amending the electoral laws so that we can have something happening. Why can't you work together this time again?
What we do, according to the standing order, you initiate the process as the committee relevant. If you require technical support or otherwise from the other committee, then you create that coalition. And that coalition or collaboration can only be directed and instructed by the speaker. So I can't just walk into another committee and say, I'm here because I want us to collaborate. It has to be a process.
So
but Eric, I want you to allow me.
Hold on, let me just ask this so that we can understand. What powers does your committee have when it comes to oversighting implementation of the Constitution? A very crucial requirement of the Constitution is public participation. Very crucial. Like you said, it is the one that makes sure that Chapter 1 of the Constitution is then implemented, because you're giving oversight.
There is a committee whose work
What
is
powers does your committee have?
Our work,
oversight
like I said, I repeat, our work is to actually identify areas where we have not implemented, but to ensure that the implementation has happened. That's not our work. There is a committee on constitutional implementation in the National Assembly. That's their work.
And you are the chairman of the committee on
Oversight.
No. Yours is implementation oversight committee.
Yes.
The constitution
So we look at
implementation
to
oversight
what extent
committee.
have you implemented. But if you have not implemented, for example, you have not implemented the 2/3, for example, and it is a threshold within the constitution.
Yes.
Our work is to flag out who has not done what, and what sub-article have you not implemented up to there.
And then
The process of making sure and ensuring that it is implemented, it is taken over by the Committee on Implementation, which waits for us to flag out and then they take over.
I thought the
And
committee for implementation
that's the confusion
to
people don't
implement.
understand between my committee and the Committee on Implementation.
I thought the implementation committee was to implement decisions of parliament to make sure that then they are followed up with action.
Definitely, yes. The seasons of parliament means anything that has been flagged within the parliamentary proceedings, including my committee's work.
And who's the chair of this committee that's supposed to implement?
Currently, the chair is, I'm not so sure, because the last parliament, it was Sholei.
We'll find out in due course.
It was the deputy speaker last parliament. This parliament, I think it is Murugara. I'm not so sure.
Murugara is JLAC.
It's JLAC.
Yes.
I'm not so sure. I need to check on the list. But allow me to go back to the finance bill.
So because we have finance bill, we are talking about people giving feedback. The committee is sitting and listening to people from various sectors coming and giving feedback.
Which committee?
Committee on Finance and Planning, right?
Okay.
People in various other areas across the country may be giving feedback. How do we make sure that the feedback that's coming from across all sectors of the country land at the Finance Committee's desk? And we then track how the Finance Committee has made its decision with input or not from the public. How do we make sure of that? If we had a public participation bill, maybe we'd have something.
I think the procedures of public participation within the Finance Committee are advertised by the same committee. And I'm sure they have a schedule probably. I'm not so sure because I can't speak for them. I believe they should have a schedule where every county or every sub-county has a sitting where they receive the opinions and submissions. I'm sure they have floated us an email where people should submit their. I've already submitted. I saw an email, and I also submitted on behalf of dairy farmers because I'm a dairy farmer. And then they should sit and retreat and look at the submissions.
So what is the threshold here? Because we've seen previously when in the matter of the affordable housing bill, the court saying that there was no sufficient public participation in the manner in which it had been advertised. And that's why Parliament had to then change and say we are going to have sittings across the country. And the joint committee had to go now across the country listening to people on the issue of the affordable housing bill. This one, it's receiving memoranda. What's the threshold for public participation? How do we know
I
which is sufficient and
would
insufficient?
Want to request you to allow me to also study that, because I participated just last week, but when I participated on the budget, public participation for budget committee, BAC. And I was concerned because in Kiambu County, we were only given one forum in Kirigiti. And you know, Kiambu County, we have 12 constituencies. So I assumed that they assumed that people from Raleigh would be comfortable to drive all the way to Kirigiti to just come and give, their views. And they assumed that also people from Thika, the extent of Gatuanyaga, could drive all the way to come to Kirigiti and give their views. So I think this whole public participation issue needs to be reviewed. That's my take. I think we may need to sit down and ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing? Because when you do one forum for 2 hours in Kirigiti and you are harassing everybody to finish, Kirigiti is in Kiambu. Kiambu, near Kis, near Kenya.
The former Kenya, Kiambu is
around it and around. Yes. So you want me to come from Larry, the far end of Larry, near flyover, to come to Kirigiti to give my opinion on budget allocations. And how many of us can afford anyway? So those are the issues that I think, because I'm not the right person to speak about this whole thing, basically because I don't chair the BSC committee, I don't chair the finance committee, and I am still not very familiar with public participation, the thresholds you're asking for. So allow me to study, and probably the next interview, we will dissect that further. Allow me to go back to the finance, because that is what I had prepared.
Because here
he asked me a question, Eric asked me a question, because I represent farmers. How do I feel like my farmers are taken care of within this finance bill? And I would say yes and no. No, because I represent milk farmers, poultry farmers, coffee farmers, and tea farmers. I have seen this proposal like it's a bit discriminative, Eric. On the basis of you cannot remove some taxes on a certain sector and you do not touch on the other sector. There is a proposal that is on the zero-rated supplies that says that transportation of sugarcane from farms to milling factories are going to be zero-rated on supplies. But I have not seen transportation of tea, transportation of coffee, transportation of milk. And in my constituency, milk transportation takes all the money that the farmer is supposed to end up with. The cost of transportation of milk is very expensive in Githunguri. Most of my farmers lose their money during that process because, of course, milk is perishable. So most farmers, by the time they deliver the milk to the processing point, the milk is already spoiled and they have to lose all the kilos.
Now, this transportation causes this problem.
Cause this problem in terms of?
You see, the cost of transportation ensures that the farmers don't benefit from their milk.
Yeah.
So what is it about the transportation?
Because the farmer has to be charged for the cost of transportation. Now, let's take, for example, a farmer who is transporting milk from their boma, their shed, their home. You have to package this milk into the right container, otherwise your milk is going to be disqualified. You have to use aluminium and a certain gauge of aluminium, not just aluminium. You have to make sure that the temperature of your milk is right. Because if the temperature of your milk is not right, according to your processor, your milk is not going to be accepted. You have to make sure that your milk is covered. So if you're carrying your milk using a boda, you must make sure that the container that is ferrying your milk is properly covered, sealed. Now, all those costs of ensuring that your milk is covered and transported in the right container, that whole cost is pushed back to the farmer. Because the processors are the ones who provide that transport. They provide you with container, they provide you with the trucks that are going to pick your milk so that they can maintain the right temperature, and they charge you for that. So at the end of the day, the farmer is the one who is losing. So when you come to the finance bill, this is a national document. It is not a regional document. And you zero rate or you remove taxes on supplies of a certain sector and you do not touch the other sector, then I can only conclude that this is discriminatory. And therefore, I'm flagging it out. If you are to zero rate supplies, zero rate supplies for every farmer. And if you really have to take care of the sugarcane farmers and you don't touch my farmers, then I need to be explained to. Why? Why is my milk farmer not enjoying these kind of tax favors? Now, number 2 issue on farming, I looked forward to a situation where every raw material that is used for dairy products, that is dairy livestock product, will be zero rated so that prices of production can come down. I looked forward because last year I complained very loudly, and the president himself promised that I have heard you, but because we had not prepared for last year, we are now going to be prepared for this year. And I looked forward for that moment, and it's missing in this finance proposal. Thirdly, last year, my farmers who rely on value addition on tea cried and complained very loudly on excise duty that was put on papers that are used for packing tea leaves. Eric and Tim, I'm sure you consume tea. That tea bag that you removed from a certain box, a corner box, that box is made up of a paper called bond paper. Mm-hmm. That tea that you put in the bag, in the cup that has a kind of a
label.
A small label,
small
a
bag.
string,
Mm-hmm.
and like a small bag. Mm-hmm. Those are 3 different papers in that one bag. Mm-hmm. Because there is that clear looking, you can see the tea leaves from afar, and then there is that string, and then there is that branding that is done on that as a tag.
Yep.
Those are 3 different papers. There is a virgin paper, there is craft paper, and that string. All that paper, according to this finance bill, excise duty of 35% is added.
Are they all plastic?
Remember, this paper is imported. So when you're bringing that paper, because we no longer produce paper in this country, you pay import duty. Remember, this paper has to be cleared at the port. You pay IDF duty. Remember, this is value addition. And in Kenya, any product that is under value addition is subjected to VAT. So there is 16%. Are you writing down? Mm-hmm. So there is 35%. There is 25%. Mm-hmm. There is 3%. Mm-hmm. There is 16% of VAT. And then you can add import promotion levy of 3%. Do your maths. So those proposals on value addition cannot sustain any industry in this country in value addition of tea. Now, let me tell you, my brother, and I want to be heard very clearly, especially by farmers. As we speak right now, we have an extremely serious jam of tea in our Mombasa warehouses. We have over 80 million kilos of tea that is stranded in Mombasa.
Why?
One of the reasons why we have that serious jam in Mombasa is because of the Finance Bill 2023, the Finance Act, because all these taxes interfered with the people who are packing our tea. In Mombasa, tea that is not bought through from the auction is normally bought by packers. And packers will pack this tea, either they sell it here as value-added tea through your supermarket, or they export that tea as value-added tea. From last year, after we passed the Finance Act last year, most of the packers closed down or relocated to Dubai and to Egypt and to Sri Lanka. Now, those packers used to buy the reject tea. Let me call it reject. But I shouldn't call it reject. Let me call it grade 2 tea. Grade 1 tea is the one that is normally bought very hurriedly at the auction. Grade 2 tea is the tea that the packers were exposed to buying and packing. Now that we exerted all these taxes, packers were discouraged and there is no more value addition. The reason number 2 why we have jam in Mombasa for tea, and as I speak like this, I'm sure farmers in Kericho and Nandi know what I'm talking about, because they know that their suppliers have not been paid for the last 1 year. They know some of the farmers are yet to receive their monthly payments. They know the problems of auctions that have been experienced by some factories, because that jam, that mess in Mombasa is actually affecting farmers at the factory level. The government of Kenya, through what they called the tea reforms, introduced a price guidance procedure. What does that mean? The government of Kenya, through tea reforms, fixed prices. When they fixed prices, grade 1 tea and grade 2 tea, the difference between the prices was only 0.45 of a dollar. Most of the buyers of our teas at the auction decided there is no difference, there is no value addition for me to buy grade 2 tea, which is only less with 0.45 of a dollar. I would rather buy grade 1. So all the grade 1 tea from Central, because most of the grade 1 tea is from Central Kenya, was bought. All the grade 2 tea, mostly from Kericho and Nandi areas, is what is lying in Mombasa. And buyers at the auction are only going for grade 1 tea. I am not an expert on tea auction. I would want you to invite some of those traders from the tea auction here to confirm whatever I'm saying, whether it is true or not. Now, let me speak as a member of parliament for Githunguri. Our grade 1 tea from Kagwe Tea Factory and Kamba Tea Factory is a hotcake in Mombasa. But because there is some cost that is normally shared by economies of scale, the jam affecting the tea from other regions is also affecting the price of our tea. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Now, there were those farmers that were buying tea at the factory level at Kagwe Tea Factory and Kamba Tea Factory. Those are the mama mbogas who normally go and ask for the grade 2 tea, and they will pack it in Githunguri town, Githega town, and they will sell it. They hawk that tea to us. And by the way, it's normally very good tea. That's what I normally consume. It's very good tea. Now, when we added the price of packing papers on this finance bill, and by the way, when I was talking about the many taxes, I didn't touch on eco tax, which has been introduced, and that same paper is being charged eco tax. So all those taxes I've mentioned have actually made that mama mboga who used to pack tea in Githunguri from Kamba Tea Factory run away from that business.
So basically,
how many? Let me finish. Let me finish before I forget, my brother. So if you look at the value chain between before the taxation and after taxation, the boda guy who used to move around and collect that tea cannot afford to do so. The mama boga who used to go and buy that tea and pack as a cottage industry exercise and sell it to us cannot afford to do it because the cost of paper is so high. The cost of electricity went high last year because of fuel and many other issues that we introduced through the Finance Act
Final
2023.
question, Mheshimiwa Gathoni.
Yes.
You're a member of parliament.
Yes.
Okay. So you've clearly understood the impact that some of these proposals can have on very many sectors of the industry. Do you have a forum where you can raise these issues? Do you have a forum where you can explain these issues to other members of parliament, where then all of you can decide and vote properly on such an issue?
The only forum I have as a member of parliament is to go to the National Assembly floor and debate. And once I debate, if members are convinced what I'm saying is right, they vote with me, either to reject or to accept.
Are there other members who see what you're seeing?
Unfortunately, I don't think we still have that opportunity to debate effectively in the National Assembly of Kenya. Because, like I said last year, Parliament is heavily patronized. And therefore, people come there already opinionated that we are going to pass that finance bill, whatever it takes, however it looks, whatever is inside there, because we want to please our party leader. We want to abide by the party positions.
Bottom line,
so irrespective of the issues that I'm raising...
The law is being made from elsewhere. Parliament is rubber stamping it. Is that what you're saying?
From what I saw last year, yes. That people are telling you, Gathoni, we hear you. Like last year, I really made a lot of noise because of my farmers. And some members of parliament would come and tell me, I hear you, Gathoni, what you're saying is right. You are actually talking the truth. But because I belong to this party, I must pass that finance bill earliest in the morning so that I can please my party leader.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
GATHONI WAMUCHOMBA, the Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency, has been our guest.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.